What's up, everyone? Aaron Nagler here, PackersNews.com, live on Facebook late in the day on Tuesday. A very long day here at the stadium. Started with Mike McCarthy this morning, followed by Brian Gutekunst, and then an extended practice, extended locker room session, and then a bunch of assistant coaches. But now, time for my favorite part. That's right, talking to you fine folks from all over the country, indeed all over the world, about your Green Bay Packers. Jumping on here after practice 10, Packers training camp, the last public practice that they'll hold prior to taking on the Tennessee Titans in this here building right here on Thursday night, their first preseason game. Undoubtedly, Aaron Rodgers will not be playing in that contest. We saw him running the scout team today. And a bit of the headline, you can't shy around the headline today. Aaron Rodgers not pleased with some of the effort put forth by the young wideouts today during that scout team session. He called it piss poor. Called it one of the worst card performances he's ever seen. Cards being what the offense is shown in their terminology, giving them their assignments to kind of replicate what the Titans might do. There was one point in the drill when he was throwing, I couldn't see which receiver it was, but somebody obviously was kind of half-assing it out of his break, and Rodgers threw a bullet into the ground, clearly pissed off. And then he went off about it a little bit at his locker session today. So I'm sure that will be a prevailing storyline over the upcoming week, and that is definitely something to look for. This came after he once again, unprompted, praised Jake Kumerow. I'm not sitting here on August 7th telling you that Jake Kumerow is going to make the 53, but every day this kid goes out there and performs at a high level. And to have now twice been given unprompted praise from QB1, well, his early returns are good. That's all I'll say. Justin starts us off with, do we go after Mack? Obviously talking about Khalil Mack, the unsigned, or at least now holding out linebacker for the Oakland Raiders. I know that really kind of took off today online. I actually asked Brian Gutekunst that very question at the end of his press conference today, just to see what he'd say. I said, would you call Reggie if Khalil Mack is indeed available? And Brian very smartly turned that around to say he would call Reggie regardless, because of course they're friends. But he did say, and I thought this was telling, we have conversations about everything, but sometimes things don't make sense from a team building standpoint. I think you can stop right there, because look, the Packers are in the process of trying to make Aaron Rodgers the highest paid player in the history of the league. I have a hard time believing they're going to turn around and give away a bunch of premium picks, which is what it'll take to get Khalil Mack, and then on top of that have to sign him to a big-time contract extension, which is the whole reason he's holding out in Oakland. So it's fun for fantasy football people to talk about, but I don't really see that being a realistic option for the Packers. Also from Springfield, Illinois. What's up, Steve? How are you? A first and a third, and Matthews for Mack. Marcus, as Ted always used to say, this isn't fantasy football. What's wrong with Graham's knee? Daniel, I'm told he just hit it. I can't get out of anybody whether when he hit the ground or if he hit another player, probably Josh Jones on that play yesterday where they both went to the ground. But we've been told that it is not significant and they are being more precautionary than anything else. That said, I would bet against seeing him on Thursday night. How has Yancey been? Haven't heard much on him besides today. He's been in the mix a lot with the starters, actually. He hasn't been incredibly productive, but he has caught some balls from Rodgers. I think you can put him in that group that Rodgers was talking about at his locker today. I don't think he was really appreciative of the effort of Yancey and all the rookie wide receivers that were drafted this year. I think all those guys were catching Rodgers' ire late in today's practice. Brian, yes, Kentrell Brice is back. He was back for the first part of practice yesterday and then went into the Don Hudson Center. Today he made it through the entire practice, including teamwork. He was out there with the first unit as he had been at the start of camp. What's up, Randy? How are you? Raji for right tackle. There you go. Funnily enough, Jason Spriggs, I thought, had one of his best practices today. James Campen talked a little while ago about how he's still getting used to carrying all that extra weight that he gained in the offseason. I don't think Jason Spriggs ever is going to be confused for an All-Pro, but I do think that he has a chance to kind of take a step and make himself a long-term, if not a starting option in the NFL, can give himself a chance to be a long-term NFL player who may not ever be what they projected him to be when they traded up in the second round, but to be some really valuable insurance along the offensive line. Stop with the Dez talk. I agree. It's probably not going to happen. But heck, if we're talking about trading for Khalil Mack, why can't we talk about signing Dez Bryant? They're both probably as likely to happen as each other. So, in fact, I would say Dez Bryant is probably more of a probability than Khalil Mack. But Christian, St. Brown would definitely fall into that group that we were talking about a little earlier that drew Aaron Rodgers' ire. With that said, I thought he had a really strong practice up until they were running scout team. And I think he had a really good showing at the end of last week, both Friday and Saturday. So, look, I think it's still very early in camp. That is something Brian Gutekunst stressed repeatedly during his press conference today. But, you know, these guys have to perform when the lights come on Thursday night and throughout the preseason. You know, if they can't get Rodgers' trust and if they can't stop making repeated mistakes, the same mistakes over and over again, Rodgers isn't going to throw them the ball. And there's not going to be much reason for the personnel group to keep all of them around. So I think today will be a big moment in a lot of those young men's lives. Hopefully a light bulb goes off for a few of them. We could talk about the preseason games not on TV in the UK. We could, but I get the sense that not a majority of the audience would be interested in that. But I will say, Reddit is your friend. Thoughts on Montravius Adams? Jared, interestingly enough, Mike Pettin brought him up in comparison to Muhammad Wilkerson in regards to his athletic traits and trying to find more consistency in his game so far in camp. That's a pretty, and this happened unprompted from Pettin. That's pretty high praise. And I think Saturday night, if you did tune in to Family Night, you saw a glimpse of the talent that you've seen on the practice field here at Braden Nitschke. You know, he's intriguing. He's got an incredibly quick first step off the line of scrimmage, and he gives guys a lot of problems with that quick step. And this isn't in the Jarrell Worthy sense where Worthy would guess the snap count. This is a guy who is truly quick twitch. He's still got a lot of refinement but to happen along the way, but the early returns are good. And I tell you what, if they found a player there, their defensive front could be downright monstrous. I mean, it looks pretty good already, but if Adams becomes a player, they're really cooking with gas. Kenny Clark looks like Kenny Clark. He looks like he's a star in the making, as far as I'm concerned. Am I excited about the new Picard series? Raymond, I'm a Star Wars guy. I don't do Star Trek. That said, I am excited. Who starts on Thursday, Hundley or Kaiser? They haven't said yet. My guess is, kind of reading between the tea leaves of practice reps and who was given what, I would guess Hundley gets the start. Does 16 really have a chance at the 53? Absolutely. Sitting here right now on August 7th? No doubt. Now, he's got to ball out, and he's got to show throughout the preseason, excluding on special teams, but yeah, of course he's got a shot. Will we be picking up another linebacker? I asked Gutekunst something along those lines today. Sure sounds like they want to, see some of these young players in preseason first. He did say they're always evaluating day in and day out, but it does look like they're going to give these guys at least one preseason game, if not two, before they. Gary, our resident hater, is here saying, so what's up with the secondary getting beat every day? No good after all. You got to remember what they're doing and what they're trying to accomplish. And you also have to recognize today, especially the last 2 days, that they've been without Kevin King and without Jair Alexander. And yesterday in team, they were without Kentrell Bryce. So that's a whole lot of kind of frontline guys who have not been playing. Have, Dimitri Goodson and Devon House been getting beat? Yes. Does that mean anything on August 7th? No. House still needs to be cut despite picking off that garbage throw from 12. Daniel, I take it you were in attendance today. I don't know. It wasn't a great throw, but it was a good read by House. I don't think that you can just completely disregard what House did on that play. That said, with House, I said this when they signed him to the one-year deal. They lose absolutely nothing by bringing him in, getting some reps out of him, and seeing if he can kind of build any kind of consistency. We haven't seen that. We've seen him struggle. And they don't lose anything if they cut him. He's not owed any money. So I'm not ready to sit here and say right now before they've played a snap in the preseason that he's going to get cut, but I think the possibility is definitely exists. Oh no, low network connection. That's not good. There we go, we're back. Sorry about that, guys. Connection cut out for a second there. Raymond, Vince Beagle has looked serviceable. I haven't seen a ton out of him when it comes to rushing the passer, but that said, it's really hard to get any kind of a gauge with what these guys are being asked to do, especially in teamwork, because you know they're allowed to make their first move or whatever, and if they get around the edge, they have to let up right away because they see the quarterback in that red jersey. I think preseason will go a long way to determining where these guys are, especially if we can get some looks in obvious passing situations where they're allowed to kind of pin their ears back and do a legit one-on-one. They did some more one-on-one pass rushing drills today, but you know, between you and me and all 400 of you here on Facebook Live, if you have followed me on Twitter, social media, whatever, for any amount of time, you know I've never put a whole lot of stock in those drills, and that's something that Brian Gutekunst alluded to this morning when we spoke to him. You know, the NFL is littered with a history of guys who have looked like Lawrence Taylor's, first child, the second coming of Lawrence Taylor in one-on-one pass rushing drills in training camp, only to be taking the field in 11-on-11 football and absolutely disappearing. It happens each and every year. I think you can see traits, you can see kind of guys working through things in those drills, but keeping tracks of wins and losses and who's beating who and all of that, to me, it doesn't really add up to a whole heck of a lot. I put a lot more stock in what they do in the preseason games, and those are right around the corner. I'm sure I'm going to get asked about Khalil Mack a whole lot today. I did mention earlier in the video that it's not something I see as a realistic possibility, if only because I can't imagine they're about to make Aaron Rodgers the highest paid player ever in the history of the game and then turn around and give up major assets to then pay another guy to become at least the highest paid linebacker ever in the game. I just don't see that happening. Don't hear much about Mercedes catching the ball. How is he doing? He was thrust into action today because Jimmy Graham was out with a knee injury. But he looks fine in the passing game. Now, that said, you're not ever going to be mistaking him for Graham down the field. But he is definitely able to get downfield, to work the seam. He had a nice one over the middle today. He's still a big-time weapon in the red zone. But let's be honest, the guy is here to be an absolute powerhouse in the run game, and that is what we have seen day in and day out. And today was no different. There was one play in when they were working on the run game. The receivers and the quarterbacks are on one end of the field, and the offensive line with the running backs going against the defensive front is on the other end of the field. Holy cow. There was one play, Lewis hooked Beagle on a run to his side of the field, and I mean just obliterated him, just completely took him out of the play, erased him as if he wasn't there. And then later on, I can't remember if it was 2 minute or move the ball, but it was 11-on-11, and Kyler Fackrell came around the right end, and he was trying to get to Rodgers, and I mean Mercedes Lewis just looked like a dad having fun with his kid at a football game, pickup game at a family picnic. He was just kind of just. Yeah, come on. All right, good effort. All right. I mean, it was ludicrous. Lewis is an absolute monster when it comes to either the run game or the pass game and just eliminating whoever he's asked to block. That is where his true value lies. James, Michael Clark will not be making the roster. He retired. He did not report to camp. We found that out first day of camp, but we had not heard any of that prior to the start of training camp. But yes, Michael Clark no longer with the team. Good audio. I must sit by the mic. I do often sit up front because I have to take video with my phone. So I have to get close. So I am by the mic. Is Graham okay? You think he's going to start over Lewis for the season? Yes, he will start over Lewis for the season. And yes, he's fine. Today, sitting out today was just much more precautionary than anything else. How has Cobb looked? Mike, he's looked good and explosive. Obviously sat out today, still dealing with some lingering issues with that ankle, but when he's been in there with 12, they haven't missed a beat. And I think, especially with so many young guys behind him, I do think you're going to see Rodgers look his way a bit more this season. My nose looks fried. Yeah, well, that's what happens when you stand outside all day. How will Montgomery and Williams split carries? Billy, if the early part of camp, this first week, 2 weeks of camp is any indication, Williams will be your first and second down guy for the most part. And Ty Montgomery will definitely be featured in 2-minute and hurry-up situations. Now, that's not going to be a tried and true rule. They will certainly deviate from that on occasion, probably opponent dependent. But those are the roles that they're taking right now, and they both look good. Who starts at QB on Thursday? Daniel talked about that a little bit before. My hunch is Hundley. We haven't been given any kind of indication, but reading between the lines, I'm going to say Hundley, but who knows? Is Jair Alexander starting? I think he will week 1 in the nickel, but right now he has sat out the last 2 days with a groin injury. He told us it's nothing serious. He just felt some pulling and some tightness after family night or during family night, but right now they're keeping him out just to keep him fresh. Patton's defense will be hard for teams to prepare for. I definitely agree with that. No question. When do you think they start looking for another kicker? Not yet. Maybe next season, but not yet. Any info on King injuring his other shoulder? Only that it is his other shoulder. He hasn't really talked to anybody about it, and my attempts at finding out more have been thwarted. But for now, it's definitely something to keep an eye on because he was having a very strong camp prior to getting hurt. You definitely don't want something to linger through the season that ends up getting him shut down like we saw last year. No doubt about that. My thoughts on Reggie Gilbert's camp performance. The guy has definitely come on in the last 2 or 3 practices. You definitely saw again today where he is able to get around guys, through guys. He just has to pull up because that quarterback is sitting there with a red jersey. But I'm very interested to see what happens when he's allowed to pin his ears back against somebody he can hit on Thursday night. But early returns are quite good on Gilbert. All right, everybody, I'm going to have to jump. Thank you so much for all the questions. I'm sorry if I couldn't get to yours. Make sure you're checking PackersNews.com for all the latest, where I'm sure we'll answer whatever questions you might have. I'll be back tomorrow at some point, and then Thursday night, first preseason game. It's all happening. Thanks a lot, everyone. Have a good night.